Okay, guys, welcome to our episode number something. I think it's number 3 of the podcast that we're trying to. That we're not trying. We're launching. We've launched called Unlock. So I want to talk about um something that's been in my mind. I was running a leaders meeting this week about this, and I think it's helpful for mindset overall and just getting people in the right mindset when they're starting a career, even if they're not really starting a career. One thing I've learned that it's, again, this is all personal opinion that's helped me a lot is, finding somebody in your life that has not just an emotional vested interest in you, but somebody that has a financial vested interest in you. So for example, I'll give you an example. When you look at, people that influence our lives the most, typically for most people, it's your parents, it's your friends, it's people that you're close to, because not really so by choice. Maybe a little bit of it is by choice, but more so of it because you grew up in a certain environment, you grew up in a certain city, neighborhood, etc. And so you are inclined to listen and just be around, be alike your social environment, right? So, I grew up in Spain and everybody plays soccer. So by norm, it was weird for, a 8 or 9 or 10-year-old boy like me at the time to not play soccer. So we're all kind of like a product of our environment, right? So that's really odd. And, not always the environment is the adequate. So when I was getting into business, running a business today, I remember one thing that was very valuable to me learning was having somebody in my corner that was financially incentivized to see me win. And so for some reason that it comes off weird sometimes, like I remember even my own family or even friends, like they would tell me stuff like, "Hey, your boss they want you to work more because they want to make more money off of you." And they would put like a weird, like a flinch or like a weird, like they would have a weird tone about, like an evil tone about that. Like they just want to make more money off of you. And now I grew up, I'm 31 years old, and I think about it like, well, why would the boss hire somebody at all? Like, and if it wasn't to make more money, like somebody that's employing somebody is so that they can pay them money to get some, a trade of hours in return so that the company can make more money. It's actually pretty normal. And for some reason, I remember when I first started in a small leadership level in this business, I remember there was like an option to go to a team night to where you could help the company paint the walls and have some team camaraderie, and they would buy pizza for everybody. And I remember having like a really small thinking, brain and saying, well, I'm not going to go on my day off to paint the walls. And my mom would obviously be like, well, yeah, they just want to make more money off of you and make you work for free. And I now look back and I'm like, how stupid that was. That was like such an ignorant way of thinking. And, again, the people that in your life that you have that you listen to, whether you want to listen to them or not, whether you want to take the advice or not, it doesn't really matter because it goes inside your ear and somehow it belongs to you. Just like you might not be into bodybuilding, but if you are hanging out with bodybuilders all day, it's going to be pretty hard for you not to go in the gym, or it's going to be pretty hard for you to go to eat fast food all day because, what you're around, even if it's not your world bodybuilding, if you're around it, it's going to influence you in some shape or form. And so I believe the same about really anywhere. So unless you're intentional, unless you may be in sales, unless you're intentional about finding somebody that has a financial vested interest in you, then it's really hard to find that person. And for me, I was just lucky to find a position or a leadership. Sales is pretty typical across most sales companies in the world that you start at the bottom and you can be the general manager, right? There's um, different, views to it and positions, but normally it works like that. And I realized that, my boss in this case had, at the time when she was training me, she would look like a better trainer. She would get paid more from the client if she would teach me her job. And until I realized that, I would antagonize her. And there's too many people that look at their boss or manager or employer and they're like, I don't want to brown nose this person. I don't want to kiss their butt. I don't want to, behave a certain way because social like people behavior tell you not to respond like that to your boss. But instead I looked at it like, wait a minute, if I do really terrible at my job, my boss is going to get a really terrible reputation of training with their client. I just have to dig into more a little bit of like what's going on, right? And so then I realized, okay, if she gave me bad advice, it would directly go against her growth, her finances, her company, and by default, her family. So I was like, okay, my boss giving me bad advice directly hurts her family, her children, her financial situation. So I realized, oh, wow, this is great because I don't need to necessarily trust her so much. It would be ideal. But as long as I trust that she cares for her family, I should be safe because her advice had to be good for me so that she could grow selfishly. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to make a selfish comment, but hopefully that makes sense. So, and I just didn't have that before. Um, and I encourage everybody listening to like, hey, if there's somebody in your life that is financially, selfishly motivated to help you need to keep that person. And you know what I started noticing is that, let's think about the difference. If you have if you have a coach, maybe it's a sports coach that works the same way. They're financially incentivized by their boss, by the corporation, by the sports team to win. So they're going to treat you differently sometimes than a parent. A parent is has emotional interest in your well-being. So not always they're going to do the difficult things because they want you comfortable because they're parent, they're protective. It's not a bad thing. It's just not always the right. And you can all imagine it's important that you push somebody. It's important to put weight on a muscle so that the muscle grows. It's important to create a stretch, create a force for something to expand, for something to grow. And sometimes parents, they care for their children so much, with any ill intention, but they care so much that they protect their children. Therefore, nothing uncomfortable happens to them. Therefore, they do not grow, whether it's in a career, whether it's in a sport, whether it's in a relationship, even. The classic mom that doesn't want, like, don't talk to that girl. She's not good for you versus like, you should like get to know the person. And I realized that this is a big deal because most people are never aware. They never get to the point to think, okay, two types of people in my life. There's people that are emotionally interested in my well-being that we all do have by default, parents and friends and stuff like that. And then do I have a person that's financially motivated to see me successful, to see me become successful, to see me win? And if you can find a person like that, you don't really have your speed of growth like multiplies because you don't have to wait to find out are they doing it for me? Are they not? Are they interested? Are they not? Because as long as they're interested in themselves, which everyone is interested in themselves, then you should be safe. And you know what I noticed is I started growing a lot quicker because I noticed this person was just going to look better to their world, to their peers if I did a good job. So their advice was better. Think about it. A person that's has an emotional vested interest in you, the advice they give you is whatever comes out of their mouth. It's a hot shot. It's whatever, like, it's impulsive. It's right away. It's like, well, you shouldn't talk to her, or you shouldn't talk to him, or you should quit that job, or you should do that job, or like, you shouldn't go to that trip, or you should go to It's very like whatever their own experience was, which could be good or bad. Again, it's typically emotional. So emotional stuff's not always is the right thing, right? And then a person that has a financial interest in you because of their own well-being, before they give you the hot shot advice, they're going to probably think about it. And a coach is probably going to think about it, even if they're angry at you. They're probably, before they come at you, they're probably going to stop and think like, hey, does this individual, how are they going to react when I give them this advice? Should I give them this advice? Am I the best person to give them this advice, even if it's right? And that's something that you'll find you'll appreciate a lot more. One thing I noticed right away is when I figured this out, I'm like, okay, her advice needs to be good for me, for her own well-being. I started running, and this is a person, you don't have to do this, but this is what I did, is my story. I started running all my personal life questions by her because I was like, she's gonna have to help me because my personal life is going to influence my professional life because they're all combined. There's no such thing as, you can't just all keep it separate. If I have a really crappy day personally, it's probably going to affect my work. Nobody's superhero. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask her some personal questions. And that date did take some being vulnerable. It did take some, maybe you could call it bravery or You can call it like being open, and that is not easiest, but I was inclined and I was eager to do that because I knew she had to give me the right advice because it was going to go directly against her own goals to give me not the right advice. So I started asking her personal questions. I started asking my boss, like, hey, could you do a personal budget with me and help me with my own personal finances? Extremely helpful. I remember her buying with 1 week of my money for food. I remember spending $150 a week in food, groceries, and eating out. And she told me, like, Richard, if you let me, I'll buy 2 months worth of food with $150. I was like, there's no way. She took a Sunday off from her family, came with me to the grocery store. I gave her $150 and she literally bought me 2 months and meal by meal. She bought me 2 months worth of 3 meals a day. And I was like, in snacks and drinks. I was like, wow, this is insane. She's like, you should have now just saved whatever it is $150 times 7 weeks would be, I don't know, like almost $800, right? She's like, you should have saved right now, like $750 or whatever that was, whatever that number was, $900, I think it is. And I was like, dude, you're right. Like I just made $900. I could pay 2 car payments with that at the time. And I was like, this is the most helpful thing I've ever seen in the world. So I started running my personal finances through her. I started asking questions about, hey, my parents have this opinion about this. I know they love me, but what do you think? Because I knew she was going to give me an answer that would benefit me financially. It would benefit my growth. And that was something I didn't have before. My mom's advice was come home for Christmas. It really only benefited her. I mean, I like going home for Christmas, but she was asking me because of what she wanted. She was not putting my future first. She was putting her week of Christmas first, which is good. But I just, again, I appreciate it. And I encourage people, like, have both. You can have both advices. And again, most people, everyone has the one. It's having the financial vested interest person in your life that can really change. And when I started looking at that, I was like, you know what? Now I shifted to where like I only receive advice from people I want my clients, my mentors, my coaches in life, sports. I want them to make money off me because I want their advice. I want what they tell me I want them to be on the line for it. And the last thing I'll say to wrap it up is, and it was the first time for me. It was the first time I ever heard. I asked for advice in my I remember she told me, I don't know. And I don't remember what I asked. I think I asked something about dating or something like that. And I was like, and she was married. She's like, I don't know, Richard. I don't date people. I've had my one husband for all these years. And like, I don't remember what it was like. So I don't know. You should ask this other person. And I was like, well, that's crazy. Like when I ask my mom, she always has the advice. I love my mom. When I ask my friends, whether they're single or married, they always have advice. When I ask a person that's not in shape, they always have advice on, how to get in shape. But this person, because again, their money's on the line, their finances, their goals are on the line for whatever advice they gave me, instead of striking their own ego and telling me what they probably knew the answer was, they're like, Richard, I don't know the answer to this question. And I didn't disrespect them for that. I asked them, my respect to the person grew because they were willing to admit in front of me not only a peer, but a person beneath, a person professionally in a lower position than her. She was willing to admit her lack of knowledge or lack of credibility because she actually preferred that I would receive the right advice versus her giving me the advice. She would prefer me to get it from someone else, even if that would not make her look like the smartest person in the room, because she wasn't worried about being the smartest person in the room, because for her, her goals were more important. And my growth was a part of her goals. So she told me, hey, you need to talk to that person about that because they have the results that you're looking for in that area of life. I don't. And I was like, well, thank you. Like, this is extremely helpful because you could have just given me an answer based on what you think, but you didn't have the fruit on the tree. You didn't have the current results in that area. And a person can only do that if they have, of course, somebody with extremely good character, but not just character, a lot of awareness. I believe my parents have great character, but they lack in that moment the awareness to really Like, should I give advice on this? I'm not that age. I'm not this whatever. And when somebody, again, when their own money, their family is on the line for what comes out of their mouth when they give advice or coaching or helping somebody, they think about things twice. And I would love everybody that, I know, and everybody should listening, you should, try to find a person in your life that not only is emotionally invested and happy for your growth and well-being, but somebody that's also financially incentivized to see you grow and win. So hopefully that helps. Thanks, guys.